The 3 Pentagon police officers who killed gunman John Patrick Bedell during his attack on the Pentagon last week spoke publicly today for the first time. One officer described Bedell's demeanor as, quote, one you know from combat. But why did Bedell do it? Before the shooting, authorities say he had posted anti-government rants online, including his belief that 9/11 was a vast government conspiracy. As Chris Bury now reports, he is hardly the only person to feel that way.
Our government is absolutely complicit in a grand cover-up.
The United States orchestrated, facilitated the death of my son.
Well, it's extremely important that we know the whole truth about 9/11.
Bush, CIA asked that.
Over the weekend, hundreds of Americans calling themselves 9/11 truthers gathered at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. They come from all over the political spectrum. What they share is a deep and unbending distrust of the official explanation. Many believe the 9/11 attacks were an inside job.
I just call it a cover-up. There's a cover-up. There's absolutely a cover-up.
The driving force here?
So I'm glad you came.
A housewife from suburban Philadelphia who plunked down $20,000 of her own money to stage the convention.
A lot of people are going to look at this and wonder, are you part of a kind of a lunatic fringe?
There is a lunatic fringe, absolutely. But we're trying to keep the crazies out of here because we're just average Americans. I'm just a housewife and a mom that wants the truth.
Such doubts have spawned an entire cottage industry of 9/11 conspiracy. The movement is knitted together on the internet, a viral community of true believers. Its gospel, the film Loose Change, is among the most downloaded videos in Google history. Its young producers, stars of this convention, disavow any connection to violent extremists such as John Patrick Bedell, killed in that Pentagon shootout last week.
We know that the news said that he might have been a truther, but that's it. That's all we know. I don't support violence. It's that simple.
They're trying to already equate us with this man and trying to say that the 9/11 truth movement is a militia, gun-toting, anti-government conspiracy theory. It couldn't be anything farther from the truth.
And we are told that these massive structures were destroyed by 10,000 gallons of jet fuel.
Their film peddles some largely discredited arguments, claiming that jet fuel was not hot enough to melt the steel structures, that the buildings pancaked down in controlled explosions, that the hijacker of American Airlines Flight 77 lacked sufficient training to fly the plane. All of it pointing ominously to a shadowy government conspiracy.
Do you believe elements of the U.S. government murdered American citizens?
I believe that it's highly possible that there were definitely elements within the Bush administration that either were criminally negligent or criminally complicit in the events.
Complicit, you mean they allowed the killing of innocent Americans?
One way or another, they allowed the killing of innocent Americans. The only question is how responsible they were for it.
Why would they do that?
Why wouldn't they?
The truthers not only distrust the government, many also believe the mainstream media, including NIGHTLINE, are somehow complicit. We were followed by cameras wherever we went.
Can I ask what you're doing?
And the makers of Loose Change clearly didn't appreciate our questions.
Anything that we try to put out, you guys just simply knock us down. We already know what the piece is going to do.
We already know what you guys are going to do. Just by the questions you asked us, it's very clear what your agenda is.
And he fled to Europe.
They are an eclectic group with widely different agendas, including war protesters, first responders who feel neglected, and families of some 9/11 victims. Some of the truthers, including Sander Hicks, want treason charges brought against members of the Bush administration.
What do you do in your day job?
I play music in the church.
Do you consider yourself a conspiracy theorist?
That is a loaded question, Chris, because the word conspiracy theorist tends to mean discredited wacko. I consider myself a scientist and a historian. I would not base any of this 9/11...
Scientist and historian? I thought you were a musician.
I am an author and a researcher. I rely on science and history in my work on 9/11.
Others, such as former FBI whistleblower Colleen Rowley, one of Time's 2002 Persons of the Year, are convinced the government is still covering up what it knows.
A lot of the people here believe that the government helped murder innocent Americans. Do you share their belief, the belief of the people at this convention?
Well, of course, anytime you get a group together, I don't care what group it is.
So do you believe it or not?
Do I believe what?
Do you believe that the American government helped kill innocent Americans?
Well, let me, you're kind of trying to almost put me on an interrogation.
Let me
you know what you remind me of is like when I was an FBI
Okay,
agent.
let me do it a different way.
What I believe is that the full truth, and actually the 9/11 commissioners now say this too, is not known. Absolutely.
We got the story basically right.
Former Congressman Lee Hamilton, vice chairman of the 9/11 Commission.
This commission, of course, does not have all of the answers.
Tells us the truthers are better at producing theories than evidence.
When they bring these theories of what happened forward, the appropriate question is, what evidence do you have of that? And if they have evidence, then let's examine it in the court of public opinion.
Surprisingly enough, some of the truther rhetoric is creeping into the discourse of major political figures.
You don't think this stuff is real?
Former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura.
There's something about 9/11 our government doesn't want us to know.
Deborah Medina, a Republican candidate for governor of Texas.
Do you believe the government was any way involved with the bringing down of the World Trade Centers on 9/11?
I think some very good questions have been raised in that regard. There's some very good arguments, and I think the American people have not seen all of the evidence there.
Former Obama environmental czar Van Jones, forced out after signing an online petition for 9/11 truth that he later repudiated.
We're still arguing about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and of John F. Kennedy. The American people will be arguing about 9/11 100 years hence.
Every last detail of that terrible day may never be known. But for those who claim to want the truth, the most simple explanation that 19 hijackers inspired by Osama bin Laden did all this will never be enough. I'm Chris Bury for Nightline in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania.
Our thanks.